Welcome, everybody, to On This Day on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for On This Day, my good pastor, and today we're going to look at February the 8th, 1996, the day that Art Modell moved the Browns to Baltimore. Now, sports will always be big business. Art Modell taught us all that in 1995 and 96. Dollars and cents and bottom lines matter more than a city full of passionate fans. How did the situation get to that point? Well, it's kind of a long story that goes way back. Up until 1973, Cleveland Stadium was owned by the city of Cleveland. The problem was the stadium was expensive to operate and maintain, and the city of Cleveland needed help. Art Modell offered the city of Cleveland a deal. Modell's new company, Stadium Corporation, would lease Cleveland Stadium from the city for $1 per year. Modell would then sublease the stadium to the two teams that played there, his own Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Indians. The city of Cleveland accepted the deal. Art Modell now not only owned the Browns, but he also owned the home of the Cleveland Indians for nothing more than $1 a year in operating cost. This deal gave Modell a lot of power in the city of Cleveland. Now, Modell did two things with the stadium. He added a huge electronic scoreboard in the end zone above the dog pound. He also built luxury boxes around the stadium. He added advertisements all over the stadium, and all of those were bringing in money for Modell. This deal looked great for everybody involved, except, of course, the Cleveland Indians. Stadium Corp was the Indians' landlord. If the Indians needed something in their locker room, they had to ask Modell. If they needed a new batting cage at the ballpark, it was up to Modell. Modell didn't care if the Indians needed anything. They weren't his team. Additions to the Indians' clubhouse were minimal. It was much like a scene from the movie Major League, just without a naked Serrano. Now, the Indians had one of the worst clubhouses in all of Major League Baseball. The Indians believed that this was a major reason that they were unable to attract any big-time free agents. For example, starting in 1974, Stadium Corp booked a midsummer outdoor rock concert called the World Series of Rock to be played on the Indians' home field. Modell collects a ton of money for tickets and concessions from the rock concert, and the Indians received nothing more than a field destroyed by a rock show that was held on the infield. Yes, Stadium Corp did do some repairs, but if you have ever been to a rock concert, you have some idea on how poor of condition the field was in. But this wasn't the biggest issue with Indian owners. Art Modell was collecting the money from the Indian luxury boxes. People were paying Modell to watch the Indians. Modell tried to explain that the luxury boxes weren't profitable because Modell financed their construction with loans that carried prevailing high interest rates, even though he never proved that this was true. In other words, Modell didn't want to share the money raised by the luxury boxes because he made a poor business decision. How that makes any sense, only Art Modell knows. Now, Modell was sitting on a golden goose. He was paying rent as the owner of the Browns to himself. He was collecting rent on the Indians with the bonus of the luxury boxes on top. He was getting money from the NFL's TV deals. In 1990, the NFL signed a $900 million deal with ABC, CBS, ESPN, NBC, and TNT. All Modell was paying was to upkeep the stadium, which, for lack of a better term, was a dump, and the cost and the salaries of the Browns. And just to give you an idea, Joe Montana signed a 3-year, $10 million deal in 1993. In other words, this isn't today. Modell should have had money everywhere. The Indians had grown tired of Modell's penny-pinching ways. Dick Jacobs, the Indians' owner since 1986, and Gordon Gunn, the Cavs' owner, went to the city of Cleveland and asked for new stadiums. In May of 1970, the Cuyahoga County voters approved of a 15-year sin tax on cigarettes and alcohol. That's right, if you buy a pack of smokes before 2005, you helped pay for those two stadiums. Now, Cleveland sports teams all played in outdated dumps, and the city did want to fix this. Enter Gateway Sports and Entertainment. Now, Gateway Sports and Entertainment appointed a 9-member board with Thomas V. Kima, named as executive director. This group's job was to allocate money in order to build new sporting venues in the downtown Cleveland area. It wasn't just for the Cavs and the Indians. The GSEG approached Art Modell about building a Cleveland Browns stadium. In fact, the land on which Progressive Field sits was originally supposed to be for the new Browns stadium. Here the city was offering to build him a stadium in which he would have to pay nothing to get. Modell wouldn't have it. Modell wanted to own the stadium. He wanted the people of Cleveland to pay for a stadium that he would own. I can't really fathom a reason why he expected Cleveland to accept those terms. GSEG told Modell that his terms were not going to make it. Modell believed that he would be fine without the Indians. This couldn't have been further from the truth. Modell had a stadium that just had 81 nights open up. Stadium Corps' luxury box revenues went into the crapper, and with the stadium empty night in and night out during the summer, Modell's money evaporated before his very eyes. Now, Modell needed help, and he needed it quickly. He now had an empty and old stadium that was in need of repairs and refurbishing that he could not afford. He reached out to the city of Cleveland and asked for help. In 1973, the city of Cleveland needed help. Now it was flipped. The city of Cleveland approved a 10-year extension of the sin tax. It had to be voted on, but no one in their right mind thought that the people of Cleveland wouldn't pass the motion. Modell was promised $175 million, which was almost equal to the amount of the money that GSEG put aside for Gunn Arena and Jacobs Field combined. Excuse me. All of a sudden, Modell would not discuss the future of his team. He wouldn't discuss the stadium, nothing. He went into a sort of lockdown mode. The vote for Modell to get his money was in the near future, yet you couldn't get a peep out of Modell. Modell said that the moratorium on the talks until after the season were because he wanted to focus on football, but that he would continue talks after the season. There was another reason. Modell was at that time in secret negotiations with the state of Maryland to move the Browns to Baltimore for the 1996 season. Baltimore had been without an NFL team since 1984 when the Colts went to Indianapolis in the dark of night. One of the most outspoken owners against the Colts moving to Indy was, you guessed it, Art Modell. Modell also voted against Al Davis being allowed to move the Raiders to Los Angeles, but when it comes to saving his own ass, loyalty or morals doesn't apply to Art Modell. The week before the city of Cleveland was to vote the referendum giving Modell $175 million, Modell announced that he had struck a deal to move the Browns. Starting with the 1996 season, Modell would be the owner of the Baltimore Browns. The deal Modell took was great for him. He was promised a $200 million stadium to be built by the state. State paid improvements to Baltimore's Memorial Stadium, which would be the Browns' home field for the next 2 seasons. And to top it all off, Art Modell was given $75 million for, quote-unquote, moving expenses. Everyone knew that the moving expenses were pretty much a nice little thank you to Art from the city of Baltimore. The number thrown around is that Art cleared $50 million, but none of that has ever been proven. Many people believe that the timing of Art's announcement was to try and sway the people of Cleveland to vote for the proposed tax addition. He could then claim that Cleveland wasn't willing to help him in getting his stadium, which would help him in convincing the other NFL owners to allow him to move. Never mind that Modell himself was the one who walked away from GSEG to begin with. The people of Cleveland went out the following week and overwhelmingly passed the sin tax extension. The people of Cleveland answered Modell's financial SOS. Modell did not care. He had a sweetheart of a deal from Baltimore. He could give less than 2 shits about the people of Cleveland. Fans were outraged. They sued everyone they could. They protested. It didn't matter. The city of Cleveland did have one major win. The Cleveland Browns got to keep the history. They kept the colors. They kept the name. And honestly, back then, it seemed like a small win for a city that was losing its football team. It laid the groundwork of similar deals that has kept the Sonics name, logo, and history in Seattle. The Twins were forced to agree to a similar deal when they agreed to move into Target Field. The city of Cleveland was promised a franchise in the near future at the time, be it expansion or another existing franchise. If you're asking why the NFL didn't step in, it's because the only people who benefited from this move were Art Modell and the NFL. The NFL and its owners had the city of Cleveland in their back pocket. Any city that wanted a new stadium just had to drop the hint of relocating to Cleveland. Cleveland was used in the shakedown of numerous cities. You see, a new stadium that was built in the past 10 to 15 years, you could thank Cleveland for that. Well, the NFL had all of these great new stadiums at a cost of zero to them for their owners. And while the owners may have said that they were against the Browns moving, behind it all, owners like Robert Kraft were taking notes on how to get shiny new stadiums for free. The rich were getting richer, and the gaping hole in Cleveland was a major influence. All that was left was the vote of the owners. Many owners spoke out against the move. Some people thought the move would be voted down due to the outrage of fans and media. Modell needed 23 of the 30 owners to give him a yes. 3 owners abstained from the vote. 2 owners voted against the move. Ralph Wilson, who was considered one of Art Modell's closest friends in football, voted against him because Modell never gave the Browns a chance to match the offer he got from Baltimore. Now, I'm a Browns hater and a Steelers hater, but you got to have utmost respect for the Rooney family in this case. They voted against the move of the Browns, and they handed out black armbands to their fans at the last Browns game in Pittsburgh. The fans gave a standing ovation to the Browns players when they were introduced. This is one of the reasons why the Browns-Steelers is one of the greatest NFL rivalries. When the dust had cleared, though, Modell had the votes to move. With league approval, nothing stood in Modell's way. He offered excuses on why the move was made, but they were all flimsy and proved to be completely and utterly false. Money mattered, and Modell was getting it in spades from Baltimore. That's all that mattered to Modell. That's all that mattered to the NFL. He was broke because he couldn't manage his own money. The NFL forced Modell to sell part of his team because he was in such poor financial condition. He was so poor at managing his money that the NFL was taking away his toy. On March 27, 2000, Art Modell sold 49% of the Ravens to Steve Bisciotti. Bisciotti had the option to buy the other 51% for $325 million in 2004, which he did. On April 9, 2004, Art Modell was no longer a part of the NFL. He didn't even last 10 years in Baltimore. Now, we could go on forever with this, but it's redundant. Art Modell was a flaming scumbag, as are pretty much all NFL owners. And we saw that with the vote, and we saw that with the way after this was done. Since then, other NFL teams have followed the blueprint to fleece their city and to get new stadiums. And in the case of a team like the Chargers, when the city wouldn't give in and the fans wouldn't give in, they moved. The bad thing about all this is the NFL owners all make money before a game is even played. That's how much TV money they make. The NFL is basically your general corrupt corporation that doesn't give two shits about the people it's supposed to be taking care of. Players, fans, none of it matters to them. Go watch the movie Concussion. You can see how much they care about the players. Go, hell, just listen to this show with Art Modell, and you'll see how much they could care less about the fans. And it's really sad that taxpayers basically have to, in a lot of cases, in a lot of cities. One of the places is Cincinnati. And Cincinnati was another place Baltimore was trying to steal a team. The Bengals fans voted to keep the team in Cincinnati with a tax rate increase, which has been horrible for the city of Cincinnati. It's been horrible for the taxpayers of Cincinnati. And Mike Brown got a sweetheart deal. He got it because of things like Art Modell and the Baltimore Ravens. So, when you look back at this, there's only one bad guy. It's Art Modell. and a lot of innocent people got hurt, whether they were fans, players, or anybody else that gets in the way of this NFL basically monopoly. So today, February the 8th, is also the first day of the XFL. Maybe go watch it, give it a little bit of support, and hope it doesn't turn into a big-ass corporation that basically shits on its fans. But that is on this day, February the 8th, 1996. You can follow me at Grueling Truth on Twitter, and you can hear us every day on this day. So for now, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.